Hi, I'm Dr. Nathan Jorgensen, and I am the saxophone professor at the University of New Hampshire. I'm creating this video for all those students who might be auditioning for All-State in the Woodwind area this year. And hopefully I will give you some tips that will be helpful as you prepare for your auditions this year. So the first thing that you're going to want to do is to familiarize yourself with those audition requirements. They're obviously different this year because of the pandemic, and so all of you will be submitting videos rather than having the opportunity to perform live for an adjudicator in person. And so the first recommendation that I would tell you is to get with your band director to try and secure the best audio and video setup that you can so that you can represent your playing in the best light possible. Okay? The second thing you'll need to do is to acquire all of the various materials for your particular instrument's audition. For saxophone, that's the Voxman Selected Studies book and the Paul DeVille Universal Method. So you'll need to get those resources so that you can begin preparing those particular excerpts for the audition. In addition, each instrument has its own scales that they're required to play at various tempos and certain rhythmic patterns that you have to memorize. And so make sure that you get a hold of those scales right away and start to commit those things to memory as soon as possible. Now let's get to the preparation aspect of it. Preparation is the most important thing that you can do in order to play a high-quality audition. So one of my favorite words involving practice is repetition. Repetition is just having the opportunity to do something over and over with the goal of getting better and faster, or whatever the particular goal is for that particular excerpt that you're working on. So one of the things I like to tell my students is practice and repetition is like having a bank account. So every time you play something accurately, it's like making a little deposit into your bank of accuracy. And the goal is, when the performance time comes, or your video submission time comes, that you will have sufficient funds when it comes time for a withdrawal. So the more times you put deposits in that bank of accuracy, the more funds that you'll have to feel secure on when you need that withdrawal. Okay? Another saying I like to talk to my students about is, don't practice till you get it right. Practice till you can't get it wrong. And there's a big difference between those two things. Okay? So another thing that I would tell you when you're practicing, especially some of the more technical pieces, is use a metronome and ensure that you are playing these passages and the technical aspects of these passages as evenly as possible, as accurately as possible, and with wonderful consistent tempo. Okay? Anytime you run into a trouble spot, could be a technical spot, something that your fingers are not quite handling very well, isolate those areas specifically, right? Pull them out of context, bracket them, and work on them in isolation until you have them up to a proficient level that's ready to be played with the rest of the music. Then you can play those passages in context once again. So those things are very, very important as you begin preparing. Now, after you get to the point where you feel like you've truly mastered the music that you're playing, then it's time to play it for someone else. It could be your band director, it could be your private lesson teacher, it could be someone like myself. And the point of doing that is that someone who's a professional or who has experience with these things can tell you what's going well and also tell you the areas that you still need to make some improvements in. Okay? So that can be a very, very important and useful part of the process. So finally, I'm going to talk to you a little bit about what folks like me listen for when students come in and play for us. So the first thing that I would tell you that we listen for is tone quality. Your tone quality is your voice on the instrument. It's that important. So you need to think of it as being the way in which you communicate with your audience. Secondly, technique. The way that we move from one finger to the next, one note to the next, okay? As evenly and cleanly as possible. The third is time and tempo. If you remember the thing that I just talked about, using the metronome, that will really help you develop a consistent tone, or consistent time and tempo consistency, okay? Fourth is articulation. You want to make sure that your articulation is representative of the style that is being asked of you and that it's also reflective of the tempo that you're performing at. Finally, a large category of details, right? These include things, musical elements such as dynamics, articulation markings, tenuto, staccato, slurs versus articulated notes, phrasing, even where you breathe, right? When we create a pause in the music, we need to make sure that it's happening in a musical place, okay? So, it's another thing that I would also add at the end of this is some of these pieces will be technical, And some of the auditions that I've listened to over the years, students have come in and played exceedingly fast and thought that they were impressing me with how fast they were playing it. However, what they didn't realize is that they weren't playing it even, or it was sloppily disseminated. And so when you play something fast and sloppy, that's not nearly as good as playing something controlled and accurately. So make sure that regardless of what tempo you decide to take these things, is that everything feels comfortable and it's under control. Okay? So I hope that these tips help you as you prepare for All-State Music, and I wish all of you luck as you submit your videos this year. Thanks so much for listening.